Hello, I'm Arthur Black. Welcome to Weird Homes, a show that looks at the most unusual and bizarre homes in North America. Will you take a look at this banister? Worn smooth by years of hands sliding up and down. That's the great thing about old homes. They've got tales to tell. On today's show, we'll visit a place where you can see hacksaw marks on the window bars made by criminals. Not trying to break in, trying to break out. This home was a jailhouse back in 1887. We'll also visit an old house that doesn't look its age because it's had a facelift. Think mosaics. And our final stop, a mansion built by an old-time copper baron. A big mansion, 34 rooms. So stick with the tour. We wouldn't want to lose you. Some old homes are, well, safer than others. Wyman Minzer's place comes with walls 2 feet thick and bars on the windows. Be hard to break into this place, or out of it. And the home of Jackie Lagacos? Well over 100 years old, but you'd never guess it from the funky floors. And this venerable architectural treasure goes back a ways too. Back and up and out. Meet a Lone Star institution by the name of Wyman Minzer. Woodsman, marksman, scientist, pilot, and the only man to be named official photographer for the state of Texas. Here he is shooting for a forthcoming book about lonely places. If anyone knows about lonely places, it'd be Wyman Minzer. The man lives in a jailhouse, built only a year after the subjugation of the Apaches. So what convinced Wyman and Celinda to hole up in a crowbar hotel? The rock-bottom purchase price for one thing. But it was more than that.
I like the idea of living in an old jailhouse because I'm a historian at heart, and especially a student of the 19th century.
Wyman loves everything about the old ways. He even spent months hunkered down in a dugout cabin hunting coyotes. His love of nature eventually steered him towards a degree in wildlife management, which makes sense when you consider how he grew up.
I was actually raised on a ranch. My dad ran a ranch out here for 30 years, about 11 or 12 miles out of town. And being raised in a setting like that, of course, you grew up hunting. And so when I was about 15 years old, 14 or 15, I asked my dad for a box where I could keep all my ammunition in. And of course, I was a coyote hunter. I was always very fascinated with the coyote. And so I painted on this box, hunting implements, coyote. And this is where I kept my notes and my ammunition. And I still have a ledger that I used to keep all of my hunting notes in. And this actually represents about 25 or 30 years of coyote hunting.
Wyman bought the old jailhouse back in the 70s, and it needed some TLC.
When I first purchased the old jail, we actually found this door outside, buried, beneath some grass and some debris. So we decided to go ahead and put it back in place. So took about three guys here and myself to lift it up there because it weighs 300 or 400 pounds. And this is...
Jailhouse just makes you feel safe. Just the connotation of it's a jail. Why would anybody want to come in here, except for us. And of course, we love to live here.
Here we have the old original registry for the jail from the first prisoner in 1887 to the last one, I think, in 1948.
And Wyman's uncovered a very special guest amongst all the characters in this rogues gallery.
My grandfather spent time in this jail for 5 days he was busted shooting dice, he and about 4 other guys. Number 90 for 1938, Gordon Cole, my grandfather. January the 4th, 1938, complaint, gambling. It'd be pretty amazing, if I could say, hey, Gramps, I'm living in the place where you stayed for 5 days in 1938, to see what old Grandpa would say.
Grandpa might be red-faced, but to great-grandson Hunter Minzer, living in a jail is no big deal.
When I was younger, I didn't pay any attention to it, but now it's kind of neat, just thinking about all that's happened and what it's seen.
Murderers, thieves, boozers, and brawlers. That's mainly what this old jailhouse has seen. But they locked up some more lightweight criminals, too.
One of them was stealing spurs, and he served 9 hours for stealing a pair of spurs.
You have the coyotes howling, and you have the birds chirping, and you can imagine on a summer evening with a storm coming in, you can hear the thunder in the background, what it must have felt like to the pioneers that came through this country, and the beauty that they must have seen and heard.
There was an eerie thing happened one night during a thunderstorm, and it was like the wind was blowing and the lightning flashing, and, you know, just a typical Texas Plains thunderstorm. You know, you're uncertain, you're looking out the windows thinking, well, there's a tornado coming. And all of a sudden, I heard a strange sound, and it was tapping on the window, just a and I walked over and I looked out, and all these bats were hitting the window. If indeed there was a ghost, that was a whole fleet of them. When I stand in that jail and I glance at those walls, I just cast a look at those walls, and I just think, you know, the storms those walls have seen, the people, the personalities those walls have sheltered over the past 100-odd years.
It's a home custom made for a Texas historian, is what it is. And a home that looks sturdy enough to be around for at least another 100 years. A nice, quiet back street in Camden County, New Jersey. And a traditional-looking house on the nice, quiet back street. At least until you get up close. This 130-year-old property sports some pretty flashy highlights.
This is one of my favorite bird baths. It has a really interesting depth to it. Whenever anyone comes, first of all, you're not quite sure if there's water in it, but it looks like it just keeps going. And it wasn't my intention, but it worked out that way.
Welcome to the home of Jackie Lagakos, an artist with a special thing for glass. Actually, it was never Jackie's intention to become an artist. She just wanted to join the Brooklyn Bricklayers Union, like the men in her family. She did that, and eventually became an expert in restoration masonry. She used to work for her dad, but Jackie was a natural. Before long, the tables were turned.
When I first went there, I was her foreman. But by the time she left, she became my foreman.
Oh, you got a lot of good ones today. Some great blue ones. Want me to help you with that?
Nope.
Okay, take it.
She's a bad boss. She was running the job, you know.
When I first started, my father would go out with a shopping cart. At first, he went out just on recycling day with shopping bags, and then he became obsessed. And when I would make requests like, you know, I want some Chardonnay bottles or the greens or the yellows, and then he had to have a shopping cart. And then that kind of got filled. So we put him on hold for a little while because in the back I have probably thousands of bottles that need to be cleaned that he's picked up.
Bottles aren't Jackie's only obsession. She's also big on mosaics.
This is my mosaic floor that I did. It took me two weeks, I think. The red and the blues are Italian floor tiles, and the rest are, the whites are scraps that I had gotten from a tile setter in the area. He gives me all of his scraps. Rather than hiring a dumpster, he puts them in my driveway. After I did the floors, I wanted to do the fireplace, but I didn't want to bring all the color up. I thought it would just be a bit too much, so I put a bunch of things in that people had given me. I had gotten this from St. John the Divine in Manhattan, a church, and these pieces were painted by Isaiah Zagar. And this is a little Tibetan prayer stone I put in. And this is an angel that I casted when I was in the masonry trades. A part of my apprentice program, they had us doing some casting work for things on buildings. And so I've carried her around for a while and finally stuck her in there.
There's not much Jackie can't do with a few bits of tile and an idea. Check out the floor in the music room. That's Jackie's husband, George, on the bass. George knows he's a very lucky guy.
From the time I met her, she's kind of a unique person. She was a construction worker, and she did high-rise masonry restoration. And I fell into that field following her. The companies we worked for would use her to put on the samples of mortar, and then she would like to play with the colors more than the average guy would, and she got very, very good at it.
This is a counter I did when I first started doing mosaics. It's a fun counter. Most of the tiles are Mexican tiles, and I've gotten in the city. And this piece, I did this backsplash, and George's father was a chef, and his cousin did this series of photographs of him baking a cake, and that was the final cake. And he died, so I stuck Baba in the wall.
This is an old house. It's a Victorian from about the Civil War age. And as soon as you walk in, that's done because it's all like mosaiced up and bright and just has Jackie's personality. I think this stuff is uplifting.
You won't find anyone around here arguing with that. Even the family dogs lap it up. The positive feedback has inspired Jackie to give her imagination more leash. And nobody's been watching her progress more closely than George's sister, Martina.
I think it's great the way Jackie's progressed from one wall to include the whole house. It's just so exciting to watch where everything's going. She's got me doing it. I did a wall in the kitchen with Jackie's help. Each piece is becoming more and more inspired.
The mosaics are sort of like what I do just to be doing something in between waiting to do another bottle structure.
I don't know how comfortable it is, but it's Jackie's favorite, the bottle bench.
When I'm building the bottle structures, there's all these little games that go on in my head with the bottles and the placement of the bottles and who gave me the bottles or what I drank from the bottles. I was raised without any religion. My parents were old radicals, but if I'm drawn to any religion, it's Buddhism and pretty much Zen Buddhism. So I tend to like having the Buddhas around. I had once read a quote by the Dalai Lama, which he said, "My religion is kindness," and it sort of became something that stuck in my head. It was a real, to me, it was so simple but so incredibly profound.
From Eastern philosophy to pigs on a swing, what's not to love about this home?
I love everything Jackie does here. It's each thing I say, "Wow, that's your best yet." So whereabouts?
I'd like it rather rectangular than square like the last one.
George doesn't just talk up Jackie's work, he backs it up, digging the hole and laying down the foundation for her next project, even when it's still bottled up inside her imagination. Thanks to George and Jackie, this old home has a new lease on life, plus a guardian Buddha and a couple of Rottweilers to see that it stays that way. Feast your eyes on a house that was built by one of the richest men on earth in Butte, Montana. Back in the 1880s, wealthy copper miners like William A. Clark paid for mansions like this with half a day's pay. The Sisters of Mercy once taught school here, but now it's owned by Aaron Siegel, who welcomes the paying public. And
I collect, like my whole family has always collected. I still collect dolls, and our doll collection is on the 3rd floor.
Eric!
You know, it does create quite a problem when you live in this many square feet of the house that you just can't call somebody. It's kind of tough.
Aaron! Aaron!
This used to be my bedroom, and after we all left home, my mother converted all these rooms into darling rooms to show the public. I remember one time I was in high school, and I wanted to have a Christmas party, and so I asked Mother, I said, do you mind if we have a Christmas party here? Oh, no, invite your friends. And so I said, okay. She'd say, how many people did you invite? Oh, just a few, Mother. And finally, it was the day before, and she said, I need to know, because I have to buy the food. How many did you invite? I said, well, I just couldn't decide, so I invited the whole school, all 400 of them.
15 rooms checked, only 19 more to go.
Aaron!
Now, if Erin was looking for Pat, she could send him a signal from whichever room she was in. Like that. But she's AWOL. It would be easier if Pat was looking for outside help. The mansion's got that base well covered.
It's a call box. It's the original 911 call. It could be switched from the police station to the hospital or the fire department.
Still no sign of her. Have you thought about bloodhounds, Pat? Coming up next, if the Copper King was so rich, how come he had such a crummy shower?
Could you turn on the cold water? It's kind of hot in here.
The Copper King lived like royalty back in 1888. Even got himself a pretty special-looking shower. Special, but not perfect.
You feel the water, and when it's right, you commit yourself. You turn this off, get the pressure up here, and that opens all these needles. And then this modulates the pressure a little bit, but this opens the sunburst at the top. And usually it's either too cold or too hot, and you hope somebody's out here saying, please turn on the hot water or the cold water, because it's way remote. You can't reach it from where you are. So that is the interesting thing.
Erin's been enjoying a quiet afternoon, but her luck is about to change.
There you are. You got all kinds of messages.
Were you looking for me?
Yeah.
In a house this big and this old, there's always something to talk about, because there's always something acting up or breaking down. Take the furnace. Now there's a real antique. It was installed in 1918, and babysitting it keeps Pat in good shape. How does he know when something needs attention? The old house speaks to him.
A lot of people think this place is haunted because they don't understand the sounds, but I'm interested in science and things like that, and so usually it catches my attention, but then I usually realize that it's either the steam hammer effect or some other thing that is unique to this house. The windows will moan when the wind blows a certain direction, but it's an old house and it has old house problems. Plumbing will make strange noises, and when somebody's taking a shower on the 3rd floor or 2nd floor or something like that, it makes another noise. But if people want to think this house is haunted, I guess they can do that. Aaron, it's kind of hot in here. Could you turn on the cool water?
Okay, sure. Here I am. I'm turning it on.
No, that's the hot. Turn on the cold.
It's cold.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, honey. Anytime.
Erin and Pat Siegel enjoying a moment together. If they get tired of this room, they have 33 others to choose from. The Minzers, 2 jailbirds who are too content to fly the coop. As for Jackie and George's place, it may be old, but it's fit as a fiddle. I'm not surprised Pat's having trouble with the shower. In a place that used to be inhabited by nuns, it's bound to be hard to get into any hot water. I'm Arthur Black. Hope you enjoyed Weird Homes. We'll see you next time.